Woo! It's finally no longer hot. What's up, guys? Human here. Welcome back to another video. So, I'm gonna rock the boat today. Rock the boat in many ways and probably piss off a lot of people, and have lots and lots of long-ass comments below. Hopefully, I don't know, you guys. But today I'm gonna be talking about atheism and why I'm no longer atheist. I did actually try to make this video last year, but something really weird happened. So, I posted the video, and what basically happened was that I lost 100 subscribers, in an hour. Now, that freaked me out, because back then, last year, I did not have any subscribers, so that was like a third of how many subscribers I had. And it was like, oh crap, so I totally panicked and took down the video. And a day after I took down the video, I got 100 subscribers back. Now, that's obviously a bug. I doubt most of my subscribers are all atheists, and I just totally freaked out. Or I hope not, anyway. I mean, I don't care honestly who you are, but I just didn't think that... It's just kind of strange, you know? And with all the stuff that happened around, YouTube censorship and stuff, I don't know, I don't know what happened. But I'm going to re-upload this anyway, because I think it really was a topic that I didn't really want to not really voice. Now, just to get it out the way, I consider myself right now to be spiritual. More leaning towards the Asian or Indian, philosophies whereby we're all aspects of the same divine creator. And I don't believe that there's a single guy in the sky that's sort of dictating everything. I believe that we're all part of the same fractal pattern. Now, I know that that may be agnostic or believing in intelligent design, but I just don't believe that there's I do believe that there is one, we're all part of the one, but that one is not something, it's something infinitely complex. But that's a topic for when I start talking about spirituality, which I cannot wait to talk about, because I spent about 4 years going into spirituality, enlightenment, ego death, and all sorts of other stuff, and I've been trying to find an avenue to get that out, so I'm hoping to start talking about that. One of the first things that I started to really think about. But anyway, so years ago I used to be a Christian. Dun dun dun! I used to be Christian. I used to go to church. Well, when I say I used to go to church, I used to be dragged to church. Now, I was pretty young back then, so I didn't really understand why I was going, what the point of it was. I just couldn't wait to go home. I remember going into, I'd go and they'd start their hymns, and then all the kids would be separated, and we'd go and draw pictures of Jesus, and then get whacked over the head for drawing penises instead. But, yeah, so I really didn't like it. And I think a lot of that was really because I wasn't really taught about the actual values, the actual Christian values. It was more just go because we had to go, because my family was part of a Christian family, and we were just all sort of went. And then after that we left. My parents thought, you know what, forget it. I used to go to church since I was 0, since I was 1, and I left probably when I was 10 or 11, so you can imagine I didn't really learn anything. So I left church, and I didn't really think that much about it. So I had to change. The sun is incredible. After I left church, we basically just became pretty much atheists. We didn't really think about religion and stuff. We used to think that religion was stupid. We didn't really understand the lessons. And looking back, I actually kind of regret it. Not the whole fact of leaving church, but the fact that I didn't really internalize some of the lessons that church really promoted, like community, like ethics and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that, you need church for Christianity to have ethics. But it was mainly the fact that after I left and I became more or less an atheist, and I stopped believing in anything but just cold-hearted logic, I sort of felt a bit empty, and I didn't even realize it. I felt like there was no meaning to the universe anymore. Because regardless of what you think, when you're really young, without any sort of an archetypal meaning behind the universe, everything just becomes empty. It was just here's me being pushed around by all these external forces, and I don't really have any sort of agency around it, and I don't have any sort of control over it. Now, I know that this wasn't specifically because I actually left the church, and I know that a lot of it was mainly because just my own life situation, whereby I was basically heavily regimented and I had to go from place to place to place. And but I really felt when I was, especially in my teens and stuff, that life was meaningless. Life had no meaning. There was no point behind it. You had no agency. You were just a pale blue dot, to quote Carl Sagan. Just a pale blue dot floating around in a hostile universe that any moment a meteor could hit, and then that would be it. But by the way, there's some nice trees over there, and there's this weird meditation thing. And this sort of goes back to what Jordan Peterson was saying. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He was saying that, or what was it, someone else, there's a God-shaped hole in the psyche when you get rid of religion. Is that if you get rid of religion, people will ultimately gravitate to some sort of meaning. Now, I naturally gravitated to logic. I gravitated to just pure atheism. There is no intelligent creator. Everything is just billiard balls being knocked around by billiard balls. And like I said, I just felt absolutely empty, and there was sort of no meaning. And I think one of the things that I really regret is that, and also one of the things, please don't bark throughout the whole video. We have a next door neighbor's dog. Good. So anyway, I drifted around for a long period of my life, and I became very, very sick. And I lost a lot of control over my own life, mainly because I was too sick to figure out what was going on, and I felt like life was meaningless, and I had no sort of agency. And what happened, what I think, when I look back at it, is I lost a really key component that I think religion could have taught me. Now, just to preface this, I personally am of the belief that the teachings of Jesus or whatever were never meant to be taken seriously. They were never meant to, when I say seriously, they were never, literally, they were not meant to be like, okay, there was an actual burning bush, and okay, yes, there are actually 72 virgins, all this sort of stuff. I don't, but I think it was meant to be a manual for how to live your life. And it was one of the most fundamental ways for how to live your life in harmony with yourself and with the world around you. This is why even quotes from Jesus in the Bible are still used, and they make a lot of sense for how to live like a proper life. But what happened was that the pre-civilized man, although I don't really believe that man was uncivilized thousands of years ago, but whatever, pre-civilized man, let's just say, found out that religion was a very, very potent way to control the population. So what they said was that, especially like after the Romans who crucified Jesus, they said, oh crap, this Christianity thing is actually a good way for us to lose control, because if everyone realizes that they actually have more control and agency over themselves, we can't control them. So what the Romans did, I'm just talking about Christianity because I know more about it, is they said they took Jesus, killed him, and they did something that was so smart and so devious. They held him up on a pedestal and said, this man is the only one that can achieve, let's just say, enlightenment, because that's what I think he actually achieved. He's the only one, he's the only divine, and you must bow down to him, and you must respect him, and you must listen to what he's saying. But you also must go to our churches, and you must donate, and you must not, you will never, ever, ever be like Jesus could. You could never even hope to imitate Jesus' life. You could only read the book and pray and be a good citizen and be a good preacher or whatever, but you can never ever attain, or at least trying to achieve, the same ideals and prospects that Jesus and all the other prophets were trying to say. Because I firmly believe that they were just telling us stuff that we already knew, that they were telling us that we had access to these amazing powers, and that the world was actually, we're all aspects of the same divine creation. But I think religion was hijacked. I mean, look at all the stuff, you know, I can't blame atheists, quite honestly, for thinking that all religion is BS and all this is you know nonsense, because what do we see? We see the church and the Vatican doing all these stupid things, and we see the rampant corruption, and we see people dying in all these wars. But I don't think it was ever meant to be like that. I don't think it was ever meant to be some sort of a, oh, okay, you know, we are part of the Christian club, and we must slay all those other people over there, and we are the best, and we must dominate. Or look at the Islamic faith, they do that times 10. And it's like, I don't think it was ever actually meant to be a technique of control, but it's been used as a technique of control. So I don't blame myself, and I do not blame atheists for wanting to turn away from religion. But the problem is the same problem that I have with, actually, funnily enough, it's the same problem I have with like radical people who go MGTOW. That's basically people who, you know, people who get so screwed over by women that they just think that all women are evil. Is that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. When you throw religion out, you also throw away all the scriptures, all the teachings, all the great advice that we learned, that, by the way, Western society is built on, in order to, you know, you throw it all out, but then you don't replace it with anything. So we're using, and we don't give credit to all these scriptures and all these teachings that teach us how to live a proper life. Now, it's a lot easier to look at some of the more Eastern religions and say, oh yes, they actually teach us more about how to live. You know, we have teachings from the Buddha, we have meditation, all sorts of pranayamic techniques and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to look at that sort of faith and say, oh yeah, well that was more, it's more practical. But then we look at our religions and stuff like that and think, oh, it's all just nonsense. And that's why I sort of started to divulge from atheism, is that I started to realize that there's a lot of strange stuff happening to me as I started to figure out, you know, like myself, and try and look around at the world. And I found there was all sorts of synchronicities and all sorts of strange stuff that was happening that atheism simply couldn't describe. And I found that I was living almost the archetypal journey that was described by the Bible. Like, for example, what happened to, if I can remember, was it Gabe? These life teachings that the Bible and all sorts of other religious scriptures tell us are just totally forgotten, because we think, oh yes, well, the Bible also says these stupid things, and look at all those people killing in the name of it, so we just totally forget those actual teachings. What I found is that one of the things that I really regained that I wish I had learned from back when I was in church is faith. Because faith, quite honestly, was one of the things that really got through this. And it wasn't faith in some deity, it was faith in myself and faith in the outcome. You know, it's like when you really, really, really believe in something, even in the absence of evidence, life will quite literally create those circumstances whereby that belief basically comes true. And I think that was one of the main things, that was totally lost in my life, because as far as I was concerned, I'm just this billiard ball being knocked around by all sorts of external forces, and I have no control over it. And I think if I had actually learned the practice of faith, then I would have been able to really get through it and really have a lot of, you know, confidence and, you know, being able to get through it a lot better than I would before, and there'd be a lot less depression. Religion was never meant to be taken seriously, like I said before. There are so many great tips and tricks, not only to have how to live your life, but how to make a proper garden, how to relate to your partner, how to relate to the world, how to relate to yourself, how to understand yourself, how to live a happy life. All of it is taught in these religious scriptures. But again, like I said, we have all this other evidence for why that was all BS, and why, you know, you shouldn't do that, and why you should just, you know, throw religion out and just relate to cold, hard logic. And I think getting back in touch with my more spiritual side, I realized that, like, life is far more interesting than this whole billiard ball idea that my old atheist past used to tell me. I mean, there was no meaning in it. It was just meaningless. And people will say, oh yeah, it's really, really weak-minded. Yes, you need meaning. No, you don't. You only need cold, hard facts. And it's like, it brought color back to my life. Getting back in touch with my spiritual side and really, really understanding that, you know, faith works and you know, we're all aspects of the same divine creator and stuff like that. And it was never something that really took me over. It was never really something that I just became a fanatic about. It's something that I see in my daily life every single day. And like I said, it brought color back to my life, because I started using some of these techniques, like manifestation and faith, to manifest things. And I do need to make a video about this. I was a firm believer in the law of attraction, and about approximately 2 months ago, I did an experiment, and I really need to make a video about this, whereby I started to use affirmations, and I started to use different manifestation techniques, and I shit you not, this stuff started to happen literally within 24 hours. Like, literally within 24 hours, when you do the right manifestation techniques, things come into your life that just blew my mind. Absolutely. Okay, let me give you an example, and this may sound trivial, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to understand about this to really, like, understand, you know, why it would come in this sort of way. But I was testing it out by writing out written affirmations, and I was putting it under my pillow, and I was really, not only because when you do affirmations, you have to really see it, you have to feel it, and you have to appreciate it as if it's already here. So I was like, let's just do an experiment. I wrote in my book, and I can show you the book, well, probably later on when I actually do a proper video about it, that tomorrow I will be given money from a totally unknown source. And I wrote that. I did an entire, like, small, well, half of an A5 sheet of that, and I thought, you know, let's just test this to see if this is BS. And I was at work, and this may sound trivial, but I got a tip from a customer. Now, I've been working at the store for 3.5 years. I got a tip once before, and the idea that it would happen the day after, it was like a fiver. She just, like, snuck a fiver, like, into my pocket. And I was just like, that's weird, I never get tips. And then my mind was just like, yeah, so do you remember when you really prayed around that eventuality to happen, like last night, and you now got a fiver in your pocket? And I was just like, oh shit. But, like, and that was just one example. And there's stuff that, like, that atheism simply cannot explain. It cannot explain it. And it's like, this is the reason why I don't consider myself atheist anymore. Nor I would consider myself a bit more spiritual / agnostic. But, you know, it's just a real shame that, like, words can't honestly describe a lot of the things, and this is where we get into a lot of these debates, because, like, words cannot truly understand and comprehend the spiritual life. You actually have to live it, and if you want to live it, you actually have to have confidence that a lot of this stuff will happen. You have to have confidence in your own faith. You have to have confidence in this. And like I said, when I say faith, I do not mean faith in God, faith in Jesus, faith in Allah, faith in all. You can call it whatever you want, but most importantly, you have to have faith in the outcome, and you have to have faith in yourself. If you have those things, then you'll see stuff to happen around you. But the problem I found with debating a lot of atheists is that they have these massive, huge paragraph, A5 pages of arguments as to why that doesn't make any sense. But when I talk to them about, well, have you actually tried this? They say, no, I haven't. So it's like, look, I also was an atheist as well. I can write pages and pages about why this whole thing is illogical. But I had to try it first to find out. I had to actually do it. I actually had to practice it. And what I didn't realize is that most people, when they get into these debates, they don't go the whole way. They don't test their faith. They don't actually read the scriptures. And when they do, they take it literally, like, ha, I got through and I saw this thing about a burning bush. That's ridiculous. But it's like, actually no. Like, it's meant to be a story. This is really the reason why the Bible is called the greatest story ever told. It's a story. It's not meant to be taken seriously, guys. Anyway. So that's all I've got to say for today, because I've got another video about social isolation coming up. I also am rendering currently a video about how to improve your skin, because I've had loads of people requesting me for that, and I've been self-sabotaging myself all day. So expect that coming out tomorrow. And yeah, from out. Peace.